So anyway, moving from the photophilous communities, we pass to dim light communities, communities thriving in places where the light is low. We don't have complete darkness, but we just have low light. So what happens in these communities, again, is that some plants dominate. Again, plants, but this time plants that photosynthesize not with chlorophyll, but with more sensitive phytopigments. These are called coralline algae. They are forming these impressive layers, and they are creating a spectacular complexity, again, three-dimensional complexity that can host many living organisms. So again, this is a typical Mediterranean habitat. It occurs only in the Mediterranean. It's called the coralligenous, and it's also an emblematic seascape. Now, where this habitat occurs, and there is also a combination of strong currents, we have also a 3D development of animals this time. So we have, again, marine forests, but this time marine animal forests. So what you see here is gorgonians, it's corals, soft corals, that create, again, this three-dimensional complexity that provides shelter to animals and biodiversity. Again here, gorgonians, and here, sponges, which can also be very, very complex in shape. So the coralligenous habitat is a very diverse habitat. It's also a very productive habitat. This is the habitat that is sought after by artisanal fishermen when they are targeting expensive fish like groupers or a lobster, let's say. So they really put pressure on this habitat. Whenever we encounter this habitat in the Mediterranean, it's usually covered with entangled abandoned nets, which shows that there is a continuous intense pressure there for fish. So this habitat is very sensitive, and apart from the pressure from the fisheries, it's also sensitive to climate change, other human pressures, and of course, again, introduced species. And the last typical Mediterranean habitat that I would like to show you is the Mediterranean, the marine caves. So the northern coast of the Mediterranean, I don't know if you can see here the little blue dots, is full of caves. Up to now, there are 3,000 marine caves known, not necessarily explored. So marine caves have a particular zonation pattern. In the entrance, the assemblages are similar to the coralligenous that I showed you previously. But in the middle of the cave, where we are getting to more dark conditions, we have a particularly characteristic community of sponges. We have many species competing for space. So in a single square meter, we can have like 20 species, different species competing on the same surface. So it's very biodiversity rich. And as we move to the end of the cave, to the more dark conditions, we have these biogenic formations by serpulid worms. And apart from the biogenic formation, we also have bacterial formations in caves because of the influxes of fresh water that contain high abundances of certain chemicals that can encourage bacterial growth. And of course, again, the Mediterranean caves are home for endangered organisms, such as the monk seal again, or the precious Mediterranean red coral, Corallium rubrum. So let's move, I think we have 5 minutes, okay. So let's move to the threats and challenges and begin with saying that the Mediterranean coast is really congested because humans are attracted to the coastal places, both for settlement and for activities. So the coast is where industry takes place, tourism takes place, many diverse human activities and also pressures. But not only inland, there are some human activities that take place on the sea, like fishing, like maritime transportation, like production of food through aquaculture. Now, all these pressures, land-based and sea-based, create pollution, create littering, as Thomi, I think, will show us later on, and also indirectly support the introduction of non-indigenous species. But apart from direct human pressures, there are also global scale pressures that are applying to the Mediterranean right now. And the most important among those is the temperature rise of the seawater. This has been supported by data from the 70s, from the 80s that show that an increase has occurred already. And the models show that this increase will follow until the end of the century with an important change of the average seawater temperature in many parts of the Mediterranean. And of course, again, the Eastern Mediterranean is the one that will be more affected by this change. But one can say that, okay, maybe 2 or 3 degrees in average seawater temperature is not something too high, and the system will create an equilibrium again. But this is not something that is smooth, because along with warming, we have these extreme climatic events. We have heat waves, as we have on land, and these heat waves are becoming more frequent and more intense. They are more, the temperature gets higher and they last longer. And this example here is from this summer, the summer of 2021, where we have this impressive heat wave all over the Mediterranean in June. So in June, the seawater temperature reached 28 degrees, and it stayed like that for 12 or 15 days. This is major. I mean, this has direct and acute implications to the biodiversity and the habitats in the seawater. So the most direct impact is this mass mortality events, as we call them. What are those? They're massive deaths of organisms, especially organisms that are non-motile. They're sessile organisms that live on the rock and they cannot move, so they cannot escape the stress. And this started in the 80s, and they're becoming more and more frequent. In 1999, we had a severe mass mortality event that affected all the coasts of France and Italy in the Tyrrhenian Sea. It was kilometers by kilometers of dead assemblages. And of course, these events are expected to become more frequent in the next few years as the global warming escalates in the Mediterranean. And apart from the direct effect, there is also an indirect effect, like for the introduction of non-indigenous species that are coming from the Suez Canal, from the Red Sea, that are facilitated both by warming and by maritime traffic that actually transports these species along the Mediterranean. And as you probably can see here, in the Levantine Sea, let's say, where this index, the ratio between alien and native fish species, is 0.69, what this means is that 1 in 2 species is alien, actually. So non-indigenous species have actually replaced the local fauna and flora, and this has happened. This is something that is done. It's not something that we expect in the future. So I will probably close with the example of an invasion, the invasion of the lionfish, which it's a quite impressive fish of tropical origin. It lives in the Red Sea, in the Indian Ocean. It's quite photogenic. And it was there until 2013, when it was first reported in the Mediterranean Sea, in the coast of Lebanon. And when I say reported, it's just 1 or 2 individuals. That's all. And then the next year, in 2014, it was reported from Rhodes in the Aegean Sea. Again, 1 individual. So what happens from this first report of 1 or 2 individuals in 2014 until now. This is what happens. The lionfish is now so ubiquitous that one can see many in several square meters. It's one of the most abundant fish in the Aegean Sea, at least in the South Aegean Sea. And this has happened in just 5 years. It has established, it has spread, it's moving north, and it's so fast that one cannot, I mean, every year is different. It's so acute that there are several programs along the Mediterranean, in Cyprus, also here in the Aegean, to control its population by spearfishing, because it is becoming so abundant that it is threatening local populations. This species is a top predator. It hunts on fish. So, am I to close right now? Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to say that, of course, this is something that can be terrifying, or it can be like a horror movie, but it's not the end, okay? So this is something that is happening, but we have ways to mitigate it. We have ways to make it more smooth, to have it, to be more friendly to us humans, actually. So one important thing to do is conservation. Right now, less than 5% of the Mediterranean seawater ecosystems are protected under any scheme. And the goal for the next few years is to have the 10% at least protected, because protection can mean better ecosystem health and better ecosystem services to humans. And apart from passive mitigation, there is also the idea of active restoration, like reforestation, let's say, which is gaining pace in the past few years globally. So these are the active marine restoration projects right now. And the idea is actually to restore marine habitats, to restore marine services through transplantation, through recolonization techniques, through cultivation. So this is an interesting idea that's expected to move forward in the next few years and hopefully help mitigate the impacts that have already been applied in the Mediterranean system. And that is all. I hope I was on time.